Ryan's shelter was the only safe spot for miles on the frozen planet of Krylor. The wind screamed across the ice plains, whipping snow into sharp, biting sheets. His fingers were numb even inside thick gloves as he checked the perimeter sensors. He had learned the hard way that one wrong step outside could mean death. Krylor was beautiful in its own way, a vast stretch of blue ice and pale rock, but it had a way of swallowing anyone careless enough to venture too far. The interior of the shelter smelled faintly of metal and heated oil. Ryan had built it himself, piece by piece, during his first months on Krylor. Every panel, every pipe, every bolt reflected years of human ingenuity and stubbornness. He had always liked working alone. It was simpler that way. No one to argue with, no one to rely on but himself. He liked the predictability, even the loneliness. Tonight, however, that loneliness was about to be broken in the most unexpected way. The alarm on the shelter blared suddenly. It wasn't the usual storm warning. This was different. The sharp beep made Ryan's heart jump. He grabbed his emergency tool, a small multi-purpose device with a short blade and an energy pulse function, and stepped toward the main entrance. The door had been forced open. Scratches ran across the metal, deep enough to show bare silver beneath the paint. Whoever, or whatever, had done this was strong. Ryan's mind raced through possibilities. He had read the reports of local predators, large clawed creatures that hunted in packs and could crush a human with ease. But this damage didn't look like claws. It looked deliberate. Cautiously, he stepped inside. A soft whimper caught his attention. He turned sharply, aiming his tool toward the sound. There, huddled near the heater, was a small figure. She was unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. Pale silver skin, slender limbs, and large eyes that reflected the faint light of the shelter like liquid silver. Her hair, if it could be called that, was thin and almost transparent, clinging to her damp face. She trembled violently, not from fear of him, but from the cold. For a moment, Ryan just stared. His mind tried to reconcile the stories he had heard about the Falari, a secretive alien race rumored to avoid humans at all costs. And here, in front of him, was one of them, alone, vulnerable, and clearly in trouble. The girl did not speak, at least not in any language Ryan recognized. Instead, she crawled forward and pressed herself against him. Her body was tiny, fragile, but there was a strange determination in the way she moved. She curled up at his side as if claiming a spot that had always belonged to her. Ryan froze. He had never had anyone, human or alien, show such trust in him without reason. "Easy," he said softly, lowering his tool. "I won't hurt you." She blinked slowly and nestled closer. Her body was ice-cold, almost numb, and he realized she would not survive the night without help. His instincts kicked in. He wrapped a thermal blanket around her and guided her to a small sleeping cot. She resisted leaving the warmth of the floor only slightly, finally letting him lift her. As he watched her settle, Ryan noticed a faint glow on her wrist, a strange symbol pulsing like a heartbeat. Tracking devices were common among the Falari, often used by their people to keep tabs on each other. That meant she was being hunted. Ryan's stomach tightened. Whoever was after her would not hesitate to break through his shelter again. For hours, Ryan monitored the sensors, keeping an eye on the storm outside and the girl inside. She remained close to him, shivering occasionally, but otherwise calm. Slowly, she began to copy his movements. When he adjusted the heater, she mirrored him with her hands, fascinated by the strange human device. When he opened the cupboard to retrieve emergency rations, she tried to help, lifting small containers with surprising dexterity. Ryan realized that she was not only frightened, but intelligent. Her eyes followed every move, absorbing every detail. It was almost as if she were learning from him, understanding the world in a way that went beyond instinct. Sleep came fitfully that night. The girl curled against his side, her warmth seeping through the blanket. Ryan could feel her soft breathing, shallow but steady. He could not help but feel protective. She had trusted him completely, without words, without explanation. Then came the movement outside. Sensors beeped sharply, indicating approaching figures. The girl stiffened instantly, hiding behind him. Her small hands clutched at his arm as if seeking reassurance. Ryan's heart sank. Whoever was coming would not stop at a warning. They would come in, and they would take her. He had only one choice. He had to prepare to defend both of them. He set traps at the entrances, rigged the emergency lighting to disorient intruders, and checked the energy pulse in his tool. The girl watched him with wide, silver eyes, as though trying to understand the strange human rituals of survival. Hours passed. The storm outside raged on, muffling any sound from the approaching threat. Ryan kept checking the scanners. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, moved through the snow, but the storm made it difficult to identify their exact location. The girl remained close, occasionally touching his arm or shoulder, drawing comfort from his presence. Despite the danger, Ryan could not help but feel a strange connection forming. This small alien, so fragile and alone, had entered his life without permission, and yet she had become a part of his world in ways he could not explain. He found himself talking to her, telling her stories of his life, of Earth, of the small joys he had taken for granted. She listened in silence, her eyes reflecting curiosity and trust. By dawn, the wind had lessened, but the threat had not disappeared. Ryan knew he could not stay. The shelter would be compromised sooner or later. He needed a plan to move, to get her to safety. The girl seemed to sense his thoughts. She gestured toward the emergency tunnels beneath the shelter, her movements precise and urgent. She pointed toward an old research station on the map Ryan had marked long ago for emergencies. She wanted to go there. Ryan nodded, understanding without words. He packed essential supplies, rations, water, medical kits, and energy cells. He helped the girl put on the thermal suit he had kept for emergencies. It was slightly large on her, but it would protect her from the harsh climate outside. As they prepared to leave, Ryan noticed something else about her. The glowing symbol on her wrist pulsed faster, more intensely, as if responding to the approaching danger. He realized she was not just a victim. She carried knowledge, perhaps power, that the hunters wanted. Protecting her was not just about saving one life. It was about standing against whoever sought to exploit her. When they finally stepped outside, the storm had died down to a low howl. Snow crunched underfoot as they moved quickly, carefully. The girl stayed close, almost touching him, her presence a strange comfort against the cold. Ryan's mind raced with strategies, with contingencies. He had trained for survival on Krylor, but he had never imagined facing a threat like this with someone else depending on him. Hours passed as they navigated the icy plains, using every trick Ryan knew to avoid detection. At times, the girl would pause and look back, her eyes wide with fear, then quickly return to his side. She began to mimic his steps, learning how to move silently, how to use the terrain to their advantage. It was remarkable. Her intelligence was beyond what he expected. Finally, they reached the hidden tunnel entrance. Ryan led the way, the girl following closely. Inside, the temperature was warmer, the air still and quiet. He allowed himself a small sigh of relief, though he knew the danger was far from over. The tunnels were only temporary shelter. The hunters could track them if they were persistent. As they rested briefly, the girl curled up again against him, not out of fear this time, but for comfort. Ryan realized that despite the danger, he felt a sense of companionship he had never known before. She had broken into his shelter, yes, but in doing so, she had also broken through the walls he had built around himself. Outside, the wind continued to howl across the frozen plains of Krylor, but inside the tunnel, Ryan and the girl found a small moment of peace. Tomorrow, they would have to move again. They would have to face danger, unknown enemies, and harsh conditions. But for tonight, they survived together, and that was enough. Ryan looked down at the silver-eyed alien, tracing the faint glow of her wrist symbol. He did not understand everything about her, nor did he know why she had chosen to trust him. But he knew one thing: he would not let her go. Whatever came next, he would protect her, just as she had somehow chosen to protect herself by staying at his side. As sleep overtook him briefly, Ryan felt a small hand touch his arm. She was still there, still trusting, and in that moment, he understood something he had not known before. Survival was not just about skill or technology. It was about connection. And on this frozen, distant world, he had found something worth protecting more than anything else. The storm would come again. The hunters would come too. But Ryan and the alien girl would face them together. And in the face of Krylor's harsh, unyielding environment, that bond would be their greatest weapon. The tunnels beneath Krylor's ice stretched for kilometers, a network of forgotten passages left behind by long-abandoned research teams. Ryan led the alien girl carefully, his senses alert to every sound, every vibration. The girl followed closely, occasionally brushing her small hand against his arm. Each touch reminded him that she depended on him, and he could not fail. Outside, the frozen plains were quiet, but Ryan knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters arrived. The trackers were persistent, trained to follow even the faintest signs of life. He had managed to lose them once in the storm, but they would not give up so easily. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. The girl, whom Ryan had begun calling Lyra for simplicity, remained quiet but alert. She had not spoken in words yet, but her gestures were precise and meaningful. She pointed toward a junction in the tunnels, then traced a path with her finger that led deeper underground. Ryan nodded, understanding that she was familiar with the structure, perhaps from earlier explorations. As they moved, he began teaching her small survival techniques. "If we make noise here," he said softly, "the hunters will hear. Step lightly. Place your feet on the flat stones and follow my pace." Lyra watched him intently, mimicking his movements almost perfectly. It was remarkable how quickly she adapted. Despite her small size, she had strength in her limbs and balance in her body that seemed almost unnatural. At one point, the tunnel widened into a small cavern with a natural spring. Ryan crouched to drink, and Lyra imitated him, cupping water in her hands. He noticed her glowing wrist mark pulsing more steadily, as if the spring's warmth calmed her. She glanced at him, and he smiled. It was a small victory, but it mattered. They were surviving, together. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the ground. Ryan froze. "Hunters," he whispered. The sound was too regular to be the storm outside. He gestured for Lyra to stay close. They moved deeper into the cavern, hiding behind rock formations. The vibration grew stronger, then voices echoed faintly. "They're close," Ryan said, his voice low. "We need to move now." He led Lyra through a narrow passage barely tall enough for them to crawl through. She followed without hesitation, trusting him completely. Her trust, he realized, was both a gift and a responsibility. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a long-abandoned research station partially buried in ice. The station had intact communication equipment and emergency supplies, though much of it was old. Ryan immediately set to work, repairing the communication beacon while Lyra explored cautiously. While examining the control panel, she touched it with her glowing hands. The device sparked faintly and then powered up, as if responding to her presence. Ryan realized she might have abilities beyond human understanding, abilities that could help them. He did not ask questions, he simply accepted it. For survival, he had learned that trust and adaptability mattered more than understanding everything. The sound of footsteps approached the station entrance. Ryan glanced at Lyra. She stiffened, placing her small hands against his chest. He held her close, whispering, "Stay calm. We can handle this." When the hunters arrived, they were heavily armored, humanoid but larger and more threatening than any human soldier. They scanned the station with advanced sensors, unaware that Ryan had already set traps and rigged the emergency lighting to create confusion. The first hunter stepped inside, and the lights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. Lyra instinctively raised her hands, and a soft heat radiated from her palms. The light illuminated the room, revealing the traps and sensors Ryan had set. The hunter stumbled, confused, buying Ryan precious seconds. Ryan acted quickly, using his tool to disable the intruder's weapon. Lyra followed, her small body moving with speed and agility that surprised even him. Together, they forced the hunters back, one by one, using a combination of human ingenuity and Lyra's mysterious abilities. After the last hunter retreated, Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of relief. "We did it," he said, glancing down at Lyra. She looked up at him with wide eyes, a small smile breaking through her silver features. For the first time, it felt like they had won, if only temporarily. They spent the next few hours preparing for the next phase of their escape. Ryan salvaged what supplies he could from the station: energy cells, food rations, thermal blankets. Lyra helped silently, moving quickly and efficiently. Together, they made a plan to reach a human patrol outpost several kilometers away. It was risky, but it was the only chance they had. As they stepped outside, the storm had calmed, leaving the plains eerily quiet. The sun, a pale disk through the icy clouds, gave faint light. Ryan led the way, and Lyra followed, her presence a comforting weight at his side. The bond they had formed over the last day was stronger than words could describe. She trusted him, and he trusted her completely. The journey was treacherous. Ice sheets cracked underfoot, and hidden crevices threatened to swallow them. Ryan constantly scanned the terrain, using his experience and instincts to navigate safely. Lyra adapted quickly, learning to step precisely, to move silently, and even to sense danger in ways he could not. Along the way, she began attempting sounds, imitating words he had spoken. Slowly, fragments of language emerged, her voice soft and musical, yet determined. Ryan encouraged her, correcting gently, praising every attempt. By the time they reached a safe ridge overlooking the human outpost, she could say his name clearly. Ryan. The sight of the outpost filled Ryan with cautious hope. Human ships hovered above, scanning the plains for survivors. They had a chance now. He signaled discreetly, activating a small flare to attract attention. The ships recognized the signal and began descending, scanning for movement. The hunters arrived just as the ships touched down, but the sight of human forces caused them to hesitate. Ryan used the moment to usher Lyra to safety, shielding her with his body as the ship's energy weapons fired warning shots. The hunters retreated, disappearing into the icy wasteland. On board the ship, Lyra clung to Ryan once more, not out of fear this time, but out of choice. She had survived because of him, and now she wanted to remain by his side. Ryan realized he had not only saved a life, but had formed a connection that transcended species. The journey back to the colony was quiet. Lyra leaned against him, occasionally glancing up with her silver eyes, filled with curiosity and trust. Ryan thought about the harsh planet they had left behind, the dangers they had faced, and the bond they had forged. Kryler had been deadly, but it had also given him something unexpected: companionship, trust, and a shared purpose. As the colony came into view, Rian felt a sense of relief mixed with anticipation. Lyra would be safe here, among humans who could protect her. But she had made it clear she would not leave his side, and Ryan understood that he did not want her to. They disembarked together, stepping onto solid ground that, while foreign and strange, promised safety and possibility. The human colonists stared in amazement at the small alien girl and the human man who had saved her. But Ryan did not care about their astonishment. His focus was entirely on Lyra, who looked up at him and smiled faintly. In that moment, he knew that Kryler had changed both of them forever. The frozen planet had tested their endurance, their courage, and their trust. And in the face of those challenges, they had found something more valuable than survival alone. They had found each other. Lyra curled up at his side once more, comfortable and warm. Rayan placed his hand gently on her shoulder, feeling her pulse calm against his own. The world beyond the colony would present new challenges, but they would face them together. Whatever dangers awaited, they would meet them as a team, bonded by trust, respect, and the shared experience of surviving the most hostile world either of them had ever known. For the first time in a long time, Ryan felt at peace. He had found a companion who trusted him without question. Lyra had found someone who would protect her, and in the vast expanse of space, amidst countless planets and dangers, that bond was stronger than anything else. The colony lights glimmered in the distance, a promise of safety and new beginnings, and as they walked toward it, side by side, Ryan knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Kryler had taken much from them, but it had also given them something irreplaceable. Ryan smiled faintly, glancing down at Lyra. She looked up at him, her silver eyes shining, and he realized that the bond they shared was not just about survival. It was about trust, friendship, and the quiet power of choosing someone to stand with in a universe that was often cold, harsh, and unyielding. And as the human and the alien stepped into the safety of the colony, the frozen planet of Krylor faded behind them, a memory of struggle, courage, and the beginning of something far greater than either of them had imagined. They had survived. They had trusted each other, and in doing so, they had shown that even in the most hostile corners of the universe, connection, courage, and the human spirit could prevail.